The boat had a collision mid-ocean 25 years ago. We don't know the whole story, but it T-boned a cargo ship. We think that the bowsprit must have taken most of the collision.
On the Olympic Peninsula in Washington state is a small town called Port Townsend, home to countless traditional boats and boat builders, and the perfect place for Aladino and I to spend some time away from our own project and soak up some inspiration. We're going to go visit a boat builder in Port Townsend who's building a crazy project and who also has an excellent YouTube channel. It's probably not the person you're thinking of. So we really are here in Port Townsend for a night to relax. We needed some inspiration and time off from our project. And so we're here to see some people who are doing similar things to us.
Yeah, I'm stoked for that. Let's go.
We were about to visit someone with an even bigger and crazier project than ours. Hello, Matt and Yani.
Hello.
Now this boat is more than just a huge ocean racer. It also has a wild story behind it, involving one of the world's toughest races, a mid-ocean collision, and an adventurer who will stop at nothing to see his vision through. But before I introduce the boat, let me first introduce you to Matt and Yani.
I'm Yani.
I'm Matt.
Aladino and I actually met Matt and Yani several years ago. Before we started this channel, Aladino and I did a little road trip down to Mexico in the same tiny little Mazda Protege that I still have. And while we were down there, we met these guys on a beach. They had sailed down, which of course was very interesting to us. And we spent a while talking and then went our separate ways. And last year, we were walking around Edensaw and you came running up to us. When we met Matt and Yani in Mexico, they were at the beginning of a 2-year Pacific cruise on their 39-foot sloop, Louise.
We left Seattle in 2017 and sailed down the coast of Washington and California. Went across the Pacific Ocean to French Polynesia, the Marquesas, Tuamotus, Tahiti. All right, here we have the cruiser in his element, and we are sailing over to this Motu here, and then back up to Hawaii and back home to Washington.
Upon returning home to Washington after a beautiful and successful cruise, Matt and Yani decided that they wanted more sailing in their life. But by then, their sailing philosophy had begun to evolve.
I think while we were cruising, I was doing a whole bunch of reading about what some people thought the perfect cruising boat was, and I kind of got sucked into this idea of a light, narrow, long, powerful rig that could go anywhere fast. Also, while we were cruising, we ran into an old friend of mine on a boat called Dog Bark, which is another Open 60, and it's a family that turned an Open 60 into a cruising boat. They were raving about how awesome it was, and so we got to see it and got a tour of it, and I kept thinking about it.
So, back in the Pacific Northwest with dreams of cruising on a faster, sleeker boat, Matt and Yani began searching for the next big project. Matt's an experienced shipwright, so he was willing to put in the work if they could find the right vessel, and soon enough, they found the one, although it would take nearly 2 years of courtship before the boat finally became theirs.
It was within about 2 weeks of returning from our Pacific cruise in 2019 And Matt was surfing Sailing Anarchy, which is a sailing blog, and he saw this post from a man named John.
The post was titled, Mike Plant's Open 60 Duracell. What's next? Remember that name, Mike Plant. We'll get to him later. But John goes on to write, I bought Mike's Duracell from him as he was building his next boat, Coyote. My plan was to do my own non-racing, solo, non-stop circumnavigation. After bringing her to Seattle through the canal and winning the Pan-Pacific race, I brought her solo back from Japan as a shakedown. My circumnavigation was cut short by losing the top 50 feet of the mast in a collision with a freighter down by the equator. Putting her on the hard next to my home, it was my intention to put her back together and return to sailing. Shore life got in the way with business and family obligations and now age and health issues. I no longer have the means to chase that dream. So what now? I love that boat. I can't imagine a more easily handled, sea-kindly, safe, proven, short-handed boat capable of sailing anywhere on Earth. So a refit for a solo circumnavigator or short-handed go anywhere? In any case, I want to make it possible for another individual or organization to own her and get her sailing again. I'm looking for a buyer, proposals, and/or ideas.
Matt saw Duracell, saw the photos of the boat, and just turned to me and said, I found our next boat. This is it. So he responded to that post, and we started to get to know John, got to know Duracell, but it wasn't until 2 years after that we actually got Duracell.
Boats aren't just an amalgamation of building materials. Along the way, boats pick up a soul, and they form a relationship with those sailing them. So of course, John had a connection with this boat, built over countless nautical miles. Logically, John knew the boat should be given a new life. But it's hard to let go of something so precious to you, which has formed so much of your life. And besides, Matt was still only a stranger who had replied to a forum post. But Matt and Yani proved themselves to be gentle but determined suitors, never giving up even after 2 years of courtship. Finally, Matt and Yani's good friend Graham sent John an email to vouch for their competence and sincerity in taking on Duracell as a project. The email's last lines were, This email is a plea to help Matt and Duracell have the opportunity to make a future together. I don't know your boat, but I know Matt, and I would trust him with my boat in a heartbeat. With this vote of confidence, Matt's worth was proven. Not only did John pass the boat on, but he sent it off with his blessings.
So John very generously gifted us this boat just last summer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
After more than 20 years, Duracell's wait was over. She had a new home and a dream of the ocean once again.
Coming. 5 more feet.
Stop.
Easy, stop.
So with this incredible story of persistence, love, and generosity, Matt and Yani welcomed this retired ocean racer into their backyard, ready to breathe new life into her as a fast but comfortable cruising boat. The work list is extensive, and we'll get to a tour in just a moment. But first, we have to answer a big question. Why this particular boat? What makes it so special?
So this boat, it's called an Open 60, and it's one of the first generation Open 60s. It was raced in a race called the Vendee Globe, which is a single-handed nonstop circumnavigation.
The Vendee Globe, one of the world's toughest sailing races, known to some as the Everest of the seas. Every 4 years, boats set off from Les Sables d'Olonne in France for a race around the world, braving the Southern Ocean and battling some of the toughest conditions any sailor can face. Alone in 60-foot racing machines, sailors face freezing cold, skyscraper-sized waves, and no rest in sight. The race won't stop until they return to France several months later. That is, if they make it. With violent weather and boats constantly pushed to their limits, anything can happen. In 2020, a sailor was rescued after his boat broke in half and sank in minutes. But Duracell had had better luck.
It was built and raced by a guy named Mike Plant, who was a famous, infamous American solo sailor. He circumnavigated twice on this boat.
But also one of its claims to fame is it beat the American record for solo circumnavigation.
Okay.
So this boat circumnavigated in 137 days.
I think something like that, yeah.
And then decided that was so fun, he just went and entered the BOC challenge, like literally a few weeks later, and circumnavigated again.
Oh, wow.
So this boat has done 2 nonstop solo circumnavs of the planet.
BOC's not nonstop.
Oh, it's not nonstop.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, 2 circumnavigations.
Wow. Wait, why is Mike Plant infamous?
It's a really long story,
Okay.
and there's a really good documentary about him called Coyote, and there's also a really good book I just finished reading by his sister Julia Plant. He was a really interesting character. He would do anything to be adventuring. He was a very, very adventurous person.
Cool.
Including unlawful things.
Yeah.
Including unlawful things.
Well, we won't go into that.
Yeah.
But it is all available you can learn about in the documentary or the book too.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Really,
You piqued my
Mike Plant
interest.
is really
I didn't know that part about him.
Yeah,
Okay.
but he was an excellent solo sailor. He did a great job building this boat too. He pretty much built it himself. He hired a lot of people to come and help him, laminate and sand and do all this stuff, but he built it.
Ultimately, after countless adventures, Mike Plant was lost at sea when attempting a solo Atlantic crossing on his next boat, Coyote. His was a life cut too short, but his legacy still lives on in Duracell.
So we just feel like so lucky to have this piece of American racing history.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's a lot to do.
Everything needs to be done. And so it was demasted in a collision in the middle of the ocean, so we have to find a mast first. We are turning it into a cruising boat, so we're building an interior in it. We're building a pilot house on it. Gonna extend the transom a little bit to make the cockpit a little bit bigger. Install all the systems. We have to reconfigure the keel. Just about everything needs to be done.
And the whole journey is being documented on YouTube, correct?
Yep, we've taken the dive that you guys have. So
we'll link to that in the description, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Can we do a tour?
Yes, please.
All right, let's do that.
The boat had a collision mid-ocean 25 years ago where it was dismasted. We don't know the whole story, but it T-boned a cargo ship, basically. There used to be a bowsprit and everything. We think that the bowsprit must have taken most of the collision because that's kind of the extent of the damage. There's a few cracks and stuff in the fairing here and there along the side, but otherwise it's in pretty good shape. The forward section is built of fiberglass and Kevlar, and so it's technically bulletproof. A lot has changed already. This was the aft half of the cockpit. I don't think any sailing was really done from back here. Forward of this was the bulkhead that the Traveler was attached to, and so forward of this was actually where the wheel was and all the winches and everything. We're actually making the cockpit shorter and extending the pilot house aft. There used to be a little tiny pilot house forward, but we're just growing it a whole bunch and taking that excess cockpit space and making it cabin space. So eventually this sloped transom will get extended out to be plumb, and then we'll have a bunch more deck space. That's like this summer's project. So we don't have a mast. When the boat collided in the Pacific. It lost its rig, and so we are looking for a mast. Something about 80 feet is what we're looking for. So if you know of one lying around, we would love to hear your ideas.
And in your dream scenario, it would be carbon, right?
Yes,
Okay.
as light as possible.
Yeah.
For sure. We've been experimenting with different heights of benches. This is very preliminary. But yeah, you can see these are long enough benches to sleep on, and you have a good view of the water from sitting in here. In our last boat, this is how it was set up, but just a lot smaller. We just really loved how you could see above the water when sitting inside, and we lived in this area in our last boat. And so,
I mean, I can
bigger.
see why. I think this is beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm pretty excited, and I love that it's going to stretch over the galley too, so it actually encompasses the galley. So it'll be this really light-filled, high-ceilinged space as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
amazing.
So obviously it's still under construction. I have these temporary OSB boards in here to hold the structure of the beams and everything. So all that will be left when it's done is some mahogany deck beams going across.
And what is this? What are you building it out of?
It's PVC, it's Duracell is what it's called. It's 1-inch Duracell, it's PVC closed cell foam, and then fiberglass on each side of it with epoxy.
So basically Maya is in the area where one can lay down or just lounge, relax, even be under watch. And then you guys are where the galley would be, is that right?
Yeah, it's there'll be steps down into the galley, and the galley will pretty much be on this area. Underneath where Maya's sitting will be one of the quarter berths, so there'll be a big double bed under there, and then another couple bunks on the starboard side. Where I'm standing will be like a changing area, and it'll be lower. But yeah, this will be the changing area for this quarter berth, and there'll be another one on that side.
There'll be kind of a galley island here.
Yep.
Yeah, but all encompassed under the dock house.
Yep. These are water ballast tanks for when the going is heavy. Fill those things up and keeps the boat a little bit more stable for keeping it going fast.
So just for a simple comparison, it's like having 12 people on the rail, but these boats are for single-handed racers, so they would use water ballast instead.
Exactly, yes. And it's probably more than 12 people. It's probably like 30 people. I don't
Wow.
know. Yeah. There was a lot of water that they would pump into these.
I mean, these are huge.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Looks like
I think it was like 1,000 gallons per side or more.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So that's more a storm tactic thing.
Exactly. Yep. And then obviously it's a very kind of blank slate. Our master stateroom will be forward, and then we're planning on just doing one bathroom. That'll be just after the master stateroom, and then just like a big settee area right here, just a little hangout spot. Little benches across on the opposite side with a bunch of storage. Trying to keep it as simple as possible for our budget, as well as, you know, so I don't have to do tons and tons of systems maintenance.
But really cozy. We
But cozy.
We love cozy.
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
our mantra.
believe it or not, this is going to become very cozy.
I'm super excited to follow along the journey.
Yeah, me too. This is
Follow the
nice.
progress.
Yeah.
Who did the murals?
So the murals, I had to do a little digging for that. So we're in touch with the documentary maker of Coyote, the Mike Plant story, which is a great documentary about Mike Plant and Duracell's in that documentary. So I reached out to him, and one was done by Mike Plant's girlfriend, and the other was done by Mike Plant's friend. So
Oh.
yeah, they're originals.
Are you going to keep them, or what's your thoughts?
You asked the question.
It's a real...
We won't paint over them.
Yeah.
We may cover them up,
Okay.
but we definitely won't paint over them.
That seems like a happy medium. Maintain it, but also
Yeah.
you want to have your own personality in the boat, and I totally
Right.
get that. Yeah.
And there might be some like room to like maybe like leave one little section of it exposed so that.
Like one little
don't know
palm
that-
tree, like just
Yeah,
a little-
exactly.
Although I have to say the mountain goat is growing on me. I like it.
All right. Well, what if it was just the head of the mountain goat
Yeah,
peeking out at us?
That would be cool.
yeah.
Surprise mountain goat.
I seen the peak and valley. I seen the stars come on. I crossed over oceans, but you're the perfect storm. Your poetry in motion. I've never seen nothing like you.
And so, Matt and Yani have a lot ahead of them, just like Aladino and I have a lot ahead of us. But Matt and Yani have all the experience, skill, and motivation it takes to get it done. We can't wait to see them on the water one day, although they'll probably quickly overtake us and sail on into the horizon. But suffice it to say, it was amazing to meet up with them and discuss all these strange things that we share in common: huge refits, making videos, and the dream of sailing. That evening, Aladino and I went down to the Port Townsend harbor where we were spending the night on a friend's boat, filled with fresh warmth and inspiration.
I'm making plans for the next time. Plans for the next time we meet.
Weren't there more lights?
I guess there's more lights somewhere. I do remember there being more light. I mean, does that one up there not work?
No.
Oh.
I'll be prepared for the next time. I'll bring my heart to your door.
Oh, it smells so good.
Won't make mistakes.
So, this trip to Port Townsend has just been, food for the soul in so many ways. It's so powerful to meet people who are doing the same thing as you, who are going through the same decisions, and it just makes you feel not quite so crazy. So, to Matt and Yani, thank you so much for having us to your boat project, and a few people who didn't appear on camera this time yet either. To Sam and Tori, they are also a young couple with a boat who work in maritime-related fields and are just so full of energy and enthusiasm for life and excitement and community spirit. And I think that's what I love about Port Townsend. What makes this place so extraordinarily special is that it is such a community of boaters. So I think that this has just been such a good reset for us. We're ready to go back to our boat tomorrow and get some stuff done. A bandit stealing my food.
Oh no! Soy sprouts disguised as noodles. That's a cheeky way to get vegetables. Wait, let me grab some noodles.